Hello everybody, and thanks for joining us on this midweek edition of Inside Africa. The United Nations International Children Emergency Fund is launching a campaign in Mali to raise awareness among children of the dangers posed by explosives that have been left behind by rebels and soldiers. The organization claims that an estimated 200,000 children in the country are at risk of injury or death from explosive devices, and that the clean-up process will be a long one.
The fighting between rebels and French-led forces in Mali will one day cease, but it may keep claiming lives long after it has stopped. According to UNICEF, explosive devices left behind by soldiers are a threat to around 200,000 children in the country, and lives are already being lost. 19-year-old Amadou Teme lost an arm after picking up a grenade in the town of Mopti. A 13-month-old girl was killed in the same incident.
I knew it could be dangerous, but I was curious because it was already unprimed.
My son with a missing arm can't work any longer. He can't do anything. It's very, very sad.
The charity is trying to raise awareness of children, but it believes much more action is needed to tackle the issue.
Raising awareness is one thing. There are other activities being carried out by other humanitarian agencies, such as ground surveys, the marking of these explosive devices, and finally the cleaning up of registered sites. The process of cleaning up will be very long. It can take weeks, even months.
France plans to withdraw its troops from Mali next month, but children here will have to live with hidden dangers for quite some time.
International conflict resolution experts are encouraging African states to seek reconciliation to fight the existing conflict. In a meeting in the Ethiopian capital Addis Ababa, the experts warned that although the process is long, it is safer and fit for the kind of conflicts of African type.
The African continent is currently grappling with conflicts in different countries, including Mali, the Central African Republic, Sudan and South Sudan, Guinea, Democratic Republic of Congo, among others. Most of these conflicts are intrastate, while others are across borders. The relapse of some of these conflicts and their persistence has cost the continent human lives, resources, and are contributing highly to its underdevelopment. A meeting held in Ethiopia's capital Addis Ababa for Africa to learn the power of reconciliation insists that Africa should move away from thinking of the military intervention as the solution to both intrastate and interstate conflicts.
But whether at the micro or macro levels, reconciliation is the oil of human relationships.
Currently, the act of reconciliation exists in some African countries through truth commissions or local courts. For instance, after the 1994 Rwanda genocide, the country decided to form local courts called Gashasha courts, where victims publicly accuse perpetrators who in turn apologize. The same case has worked for Sierra Leone and is being practiced in northern Uganda between the Lord's Resistance Army rebel returnees and victims of their atrocities.
The interstate conflicts in Africa, that are the conflicts between different states in Africa, are becoming conflicts within states in Africa, meaning intrastate conflicts. Therefore, the nature of the conflict in Africa is their own kind of remedy.
Reconciliation is based on forgiveness, which may be hard to achieve depending on the damage done by perpetrators. That is why the process is long. For 15 years now, South Africa is still working towards achieving total reconciliation between the victims and perpetrators of the white supremacy era. However, for majority of conflict states where this system does not exist, experts advise that especially the youth be involved more.
The integration of youth into the political system is a sort of an impediment of giving them enough voice and a significant role in the reconciliation.
Countries that decide to adopt reconciliation strategy will have to ensure that their leadership understands the need to guide nationals towards peace and be ready to make institutional reforms that will support and maintain a consistent reconciliation status.
The International Pharmaceutical Federation has held a two-day summit in Ghana's capital, Accra, with the aim of transforming pharmacy education to a higher level and making it more responsive to the needs of society. The Country Case Study Summit brought together a number of strategically selected personnel who have the potential to advocate, promote, and deliver an impact-led transitional agenda.
The participants for the summit came from Nigeria, Namibia, Uganda, Zambia, Ghana, and the United Kingdom. Ghana presented a team of leaders in the practice of pharmacy who have the potential of influencing the direction of pharmacy education at the end of the summit. The participants identified areas which require specialist knowledge in the graduate and postgraduate education of pharmacists. The Executive Secretary of the National Council for Tertiary Education and host of the summit, Professor Mahama Dewejia, said the summit identified resources which are available globally to promote pharmacy education.
Where do we want pharmacy education to be, particularly in Africa? Participants have identified areas that require specialist knowledge. The next thing then is, yes, we all want to practice in certain areas of specialty that will be of benefit to the patient. So we're identifying the resources that are available globally, which will help us, particularly in Ghana, to promote the agenda that we have. And that, I think, has been successfully done.
The director of the International Pharmaceutical Federation Development Team, Professor Ian Bates, commended the level of Ghana's participation and the progressive nature of the education of pharmaceutical personnel.
Ghanaian delegation have done a good job here in Ghana, but this concept of having specialist training linked with career progression, linked with better healthcare outcomes is absolutely the right way forward in my mind, and it's fantastic to see Ghana really at the cutting edge of this sort of societal development.
Throughout its 101-year history, the International Federation of Pharmacists' priorities have expanded both literally and figuratively to meet the needs and expectations of the profession in expanding pharmaceutical healthcare services and integrating emerging scientific developments in medicine.
Now, the Director General of the West African Health Organization, Dr. Placito Monero Cardoso, has encouraged Ghanaian pharmaceutical companies to endeavor to produce drugs to cater for the needs of the West African sub-region. Dr. Cardoso was speaking at a meeting with staff of Danadam's pharmaceutical company in Accra as part of a tour to the country.
The West African Health Organization was formed in 1987 with 15 member countries. It aims at synchronizing efforts and combining resources to improve health across the sub-region. It also drives regional programs to improve health resources. The regional health body has supported Danadam's pharmaceutical company in diverse ways since 2008. Last year, WAHU facilitated a $10 million loan from the ECOWAS Bank in Lomé, Togo, for the company to complete some infrastructural development. Danadam's pharmaceutical company is the only and official antiretroviral manufacturing company in Ghana.
The time has come that we need to work together, to find regional answers. And I've always believed that it is going to take Africans to find solutions to African problems.
The visit of Dr. Cardoso comes amidst the controversy surrounding some local pharmaceutical companies importing fake drugs and supplying them to some health institutions.
This really should be a wake-up call for our government to look at the local manufacturers, support us so that we'll be able to make medicine, because the people that are bringing, they are not caring about our own people. But we are saying that for the sake of our people, of Ghanaians, we need to be able to make our own medicines so that they get the right thing, so that all these fake drugs and counterfeit products will stop. If there's enough available, why would anybody bring in counterfeits?
With improvement of their technical production, they can easily get WHO pre-qualification and then to allow them to have more market, large market, to commercialize their products.
The Nadam Pharmaceutical Company was established in 2006. The company hopes to become the leader in quality regional health care with the largest product portfolio and the biggest market share.
We continue to talk health on this edition of Inside Africa. Nigeria has one of the highest maternal death rates in the world and an ambitious plan to save 1 million lives through health programs that target mothers and children. Officials say supporting midwives, often the only medical specialist available to women in labor, is a cornerstone of the program, but midwives say they still need more resources.
Meet Patience Afor Abdullahi, a midwife and the head of nursing at this hospital in the Nigerian capital. She lost track of how many babies she has delivered, and she would not trade her job for anything.
It's a wonderful sight to behold. You just see God at work, because the first time I took delivery, all that we were taught in the classroom came to play.
Last year, Nigerian President Goodluck Jonathan said his government plans to save 1 million lives by 2015 through health initiatives for women and children. These initiatives will focus on, among other things, preventing mother-to-child transmission of HIV, expanding malaria treatments, establishing child nutrition and vaccination programs, and training more midwives. Abdullahi says the program for midwives hasn't yet materialized, and many women continue to die in childbirth because they give birth at home without a trained medical expert. The United Nations says 14% of all deaths related to childbearing in the world are in Nigeria. Abdullahi says part of the problem is a shortage of seats for those interested in attending schools that train midwives. And with salaries often as low as a few $100s a month, midwives stationed in the countryside, where there is often little to no electricity and hardly any medical supplies, often migrate back to the cities.
When you have one midwife to about 20 women, WHO says 1 to 4 patients, and it becomes difficult when you have to manage large number of patients.
Other midwives, like Bola Babadele, the chief of nursing at Abuja's National Hospital, say basic development problems across Nigeria, like lack of running water in many villages, makes the job difficult and sometimes even dangerous.
And you can't imagine a midwife who is both hands dipped in the blood. And we're talking about HIV, infections, sexually transmitted diseases, and you don't have water to wash with.
She says the government is currently recruiting retired midwives to get more health workers in the field, which, if it happens, could help alleviate some of the problems. She says in the meantime, many women do not know the benefits of having medically trained people on hand when they are in labor. She maintains health officials need to spread the word among mothers in the countryside that the services of a midwife could save their life.
Moving on, the government of Japan has donated 600 million naira to provide wheelchairs and a walking support wheel for people with disabilities in Nigeria to mark the second anniversary of the Great East Japan earthquake. Nigeria's Minister for National Planning, Dr. Shamsuddin Usman, signed the document on behalf of the Nigerian government, while the Japanese ambassador to Nigeria signed for Japan.
Aid grant being signed between both countries is designed to support the promotion of the economic and social development of countries by utilizing products made in Japan, especially the Tohoku region, where the local corporations are striving for reconstruction. The Japanese ambassador said the grant aid is a symbol of revival of the industries that were affected in the 2011 March 11 quake and gratitude towards those who supported the affected people.
This concept has been one of the major orientations of Japanese economic cooperation to Nigeria over its history of 45 years.
It's not really the amount of money that is behind it, but the fact that you can imagine how the life of people who are, really critically dependent on a wheelchair can be transformed.
Nigeria will receive 600 million naira in health facilities through the Ministry of Women Affairs.
In Uganda, the Ministry of Health has introduced a new treatment for pregnant HIV-positive women to curb mother-to-child transmission. The therapy of the new antiretroviral drugs targets 70,000 women in the country.
According to the State of Uganda's Population Report 2012, Uganda's population growth rate is one of the highest in the world at 3.2% each year, meaning over 1 million new babies are born. This has pushed the Ministry of Health to quickly adopt the WHO Prevention of Mother-to-Child Transmission guidelines called Option B+, that require putting HIV-infected mothers on treatment for life against former options A and B, which often stop after the first week of breastfeeding.
Since our women get pregnant quite frequently, we have a high fertility rate. We have also a low contraceptive prevalence. Very few women use family planning.
Put simply, the main advantages of Option B+ are protection against mother-to-child transmission in future pregnancies, continued prevention of transmission to HIV-negative sexual partners, because early treatment and continued uptake of ARVs reduces the viral load. There is also a reduction of treatment interruptions, which can lead to drug resistance, as well as a simplified regimen and service delivery. This in regard to the fact that untrained health workers before were missing out on mothers who needed live treatment, and there was inadequate laboratory equipment to test for CD4 count. Also, the baby will be taking drugs for a shorter period of time.
Infants now, instead of taking nevirapine until this breastfeeding stops, which could be anywhere from 4 months to 1.5 years, they only have to take it for only 6 weeks, because the mother is receiving a much more wholesome package of preventive medicines through this treatment.
Advances in treating babies with HIV all over the world have been going on, with the latest being the functional cure of a baby in the US after the use of aggressive treatment of a triple drug antiretroviral therapy.
So it's very exciting, but the world can't change what its treatment should be on the basis of one case. And in Uganda, there are the tools, there are the medicines to make sure that a child isn't infected.
Some include the involvement of men in going for testing with their wives and ensuring that HIV-infected women take their drugs. These have seemed to work perfectly in southwestern Uganda, where Elizabeth Glazer Pediatric AIDS Foundation is working.
In the period October to December of last year, we had about 2,000 HIV-positive pregnant women identified. In that same period, we tested about 2,000 HIV-exposed infants. And of those we tested, just slightly over 100 were found to be HIV positive.
There is absolutely no reason why mother-to-child transmission should take place.
19 districts all over the country with high HIV prevalence and less funding will benefit from additional funding from the Swedish International Development Agency, SIDA, to be implemented through a global partnership of UNICEF, Elizabeth Glazer Pediatric AIDS Foundation, Mothers to Mothers, amongst others, to increase the availability of HIV drugs to help infected mothers.
In other news, talks between Sudan and South Sudan in the Ethiopian capital Addis Ababa concluded successfully on Tuesday. Both parties signed a deal to implement issues agreed on in the September 2012 cooperation agreement. This deal allows South Sudan to resume oil exports in the next 2 weeks.
It has taken 7 months to implement the September 2012 comprehensive agreement between Sudan and South Sudan. The working matrix inked on Tuesday morning by the lead negotiators of the two countries contains detailed points of implementation, according to which the full practicality of the previous agreements relating to common security, including the Abiy temporary administration, is expected to be effective without any delay. The conclusion of reconciliation on the disputed and claimed border areas within 40 days, the fortitude of the final status of the oil-affluent Abyei region, consideration of the Abyei Referendum Commission, and a framework agreement on the status of the nationals of the other country are some of the most important issues understood to be implemented.
The important thing about it is that it covers all the agreements
and is a specific program for each of the agreements as to what needs to be done and by whom it must be done, and so on.
What is more, the most significant economic issue, especially for the government and people of South Sudan to start growth works, is the resumption of oil export via Sudanese pipelines. And on January, the government of Sudan asked security arrangements to be put on the ground before the continuation of the oil export. Now that both countries have started making moves to create safe demilitarized zone, South Sudanese oil could be marketed in the coming weeks.
We hope we are now going to implement all the agreements in a synchronized manner without any obstacles. It is in the interest of the two people and the two countries that we signed this matrix, and these agreements give the people an opportunity to build themselves.
What dragged the matters concluded months ago till this time to finally sign the most extended framework of agreements is the divergence between the two parties on as to how either security, economic or border demarcation issues can be put into the ground. It is now the hope of the international community to see both parties committing themselves on the paper.
We emphasize in this respect our commitment to be accurate and to force for the implementation of these agreements in accordance with the implementation matrix, the spirit of this agreement and its provisions.
We are now in Kenya, where following the peaceful conclusion of the general election, Finance Minister Njoroge Gitais now says the country's economy could achieve a 10% growth rate this year if the incoming government employs effective and efficient measures to curb inflation and stabilize the shilling.
The country's economic growth for 2013 had been predicted at 5%, but with the elections peacefully behind us, Treasury now aims at doubling the figure.
You know, our intention has always been to achieve 10% growth. And we have now attained 5%, but that 5%, you must see it from where we have come from.
According to Gidae, top on the next government's agenda should be restoring investors' confidence dented following the 2008 post-election violence. This can be achieved by enhancing political stability. During the transition period, Treasury intends to continue implementing its measures of bringing down the cost of living by taming rising inflation and stabilizing the shilling, which is currently trading at 86 shillings against the US dollar.
What we're emphasizing is jobs from the informal sector and from the private sector, not government jobs.
Analysts hold the view that with a peaceful transition of power, the economy should see increased activity this year.
The signs are very good. They are very strong signs that the transition is going to be peaceful. So far, so good. The West, in sending their congratulatory messages, they've been very cautious. So that we expect that, we'll have a few awkward moments in terms of international relations, in terms of international politics. We'll have a few awkward moments.
Now, police in South Africa are to open a grave they believe contains the bodies of two anti-apartheid activists. Police reopened the case after receiving new information last year. It has been alleged the activists were killed by a group linked to Winnie Mandela, the ex-wife of former President Nelson Mandela.
In 1997, Winnie Madikizela Mandela defended herself vehemently at South Africa's Truth and Reconciliation Commission. People wanted answers for the alleged victims of her bodyguards, who called themselves the Mandela United Football Club. The club was involved in several cases of assault, abduction, attempted murder and murder near the end of apartheid. The families of Lolo Sono and Siboniso Chabalala were also at the commission. Both men were allegedly last seen at Madikizela Mandela's Soweto home in November 1988.
As far as I am concerned, Morgan's ludicrous statements made before you here are a pack of lies. I can go on and on and on.
During Nelson Mandela's 27 years in prison, his wife was an important symbol of resistance. She won the respect and love of many people, but she was constantly harassed by the police and set up the club near the end of Mandela's incarceration. Soon after this iconic moment, she was convicted of kidnapping and being an accessory to the assault of Stompie Sepe. The 14-year-old activist was kidnapped by her guards and later found murdered. New evidence has led to the case of Sono and Shabalala's disappearances being reopened. Madikizela Mandela has always denied any involvement. 24 years after their deaths, a Soweto graveyard could be about to reveal secrets that some might rather stay hidden.
And to wrap up, the strike by Egyptian police continued into Tuesday. The officers are still waiting for a formal response from the government to their demands.
The policemen continued their strike on a smaller scale on Tuesday. A large number, however, resumed work until the 48-hour ultimatum set to the government ends on Wednesday.
The president failed to solve his political and economic problems, so he resorted to security measures that cause hatred against us, the police. We refuse to be the scapegoat anymore. The solutions should be through political means, not using the police force against the opposition.
Representing the government, the Minister of Interior announced in a press conference on Monday that he is taking the policemen's demands seriously. But he stressed that the strikers are a small number of the total police force.
I'm studying how to arm the police force and increase funds to better equip and train the personnel. But I have to remind you that the number of strikes is only 5% of the Interior Ministry. They're not a majority as people may think.
These statements did not satisfy the strikers, who met with heads of security on Tuesday.
This is all talk by the government, but we did not see any real intentions to address our demands. The meeting today with the minister's assistant ended in nothing. He did not show any willingness to achieve something positive. We are now discussing means to escalate this against the government.
Ministers say we are a small number. He will see. From tomorrow, much more will join us, and if the government cannot solve our problems, then we will strike until it is sacked.
These developments have cast such a shadow over the country that even former President Hosni Mubarak, who is in jail, issued a statement through his lawyer, calling on all parties to solve this crisis quickly and retain security in the streets.
This is where we draw the curtains onto today's edition of Inside Africa. Thanks for your time and keep watching AFRIQUEMEDIA for more news.